what made you decide to jump over to an acoustic drum kit from electric all these years?
My band have been rehearsing in a hired rehearsal space that's got an acoustic drum kit, and I really enjoyed playing it. And then we had a gig about 3 weeks ago. We were hired to play in a marquee at a party,
Okay.
and it lashed it down like biblical rain and wind. All the power went off.
Oh no.
So of course my drum kit then makes no noise at all. I mean, nor does the electric guitar and the bass guitar and the PA system. But
Right.
I was like, we could have done a little acoustic set if I got an acoustic drum kit. We could have just, as it happens, they fixed the power. We were all up and running. It was all good.
Yeah.
But I thought, you know what? Just for a bit of a change, I would switch it up because I don't track drums for people here anymore. So I virtually never have my drum kit set up at home. It's just for when I'm out playing. So I bought a Gretsch drum kit.
Cool.
Nice. And sold my electric kit.
You sold it?
Yeah, gone.
Wow. That's
got room for two.
No looking back, man.
Yeah.
That's
no plan B.
Yeah.
So that's crazy.
There's no plan B.
No plan B.
No.
We're doing it.
Wow. All right. Well,
Wow.
good luck, man. Geez.
Hi, and welcome to Sound Discussion. Each episode, we discuss a music topic which we have all had first-hand experience with. These will be anything from getting started, recording, playing live, mixing, mastering, and everything in between. Most episodes, we will have a special guest to bring their professional experience to the discussion. So, let's get started.
Today's guest is one of the most recognizable faces behind Studio One, the person so many of us have learned from through his thoughtful tutorials and practical workflow insights. Gregor Beyerle is the software product specialist at PreSonus. Now part of Fender, and we'll talk a little bit about that in today's episode. He's dedicated his career to helping creators make better music through smarter workflows and more intuitive tools. Before joining PreSonus, Gregor spent his years producing, mixing, and performing across Europe and the US with artists like Combi Christ, Alec Empire, and VNV Nation. And he continues that creative spirit today as part of the industrial techno projects Reaper and Voltmeister, blending heavy electronic textures with emotion and precision. Outside of the studio, Gregor is also an avid chess player, his second love, as he calls it, and he often draws fascinating parallels between the strategy of chess and the creative process of making music. In today's episode, we'll talk a little on his philosophy and workflow, keyboard shortcuts, and the balance between logic and creativity, and what it means to make art in the rising age of AI. I've also had the pleasure of working alongside Gregor since 2020, coordinating the monthly online Studio One Meetup for Ohio, but it wasn't until NAMM 2025 that we finally met in person. You can hear that first conversation in Season 2, Episode 2, but today, we're thrilled to have him back for a longer conversation and a deeper dive. So, Gregor, thank you for joining us on the podcast today. Welcome. It's really great to have you here.
Hey, Nate. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. It's amazing how you nailed the pronunciation of my last name, even though I'm not aware that you're speaking German fluently. So that's pretty impressive. And even the name of my second band, which nobody knows, Voltmeister, I mean, even that name you pronounce so well. I mean, you should consider maybe studying linguistics or something.
I'm actually a little surprised that Voltmeister is a hard word to pronounce because it's two words that look exactly like what they are, Volt and Meister. Like, how do you screw that up?
Because I think like the merging of two nouns is not something that Americans do very often. But
Okay.
You seem like very familiar with the concept, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, it's a very bad joke. Waldmeister is like a drink, like a shot in Germany, and Wald means forest, and we thought it's funny too. And the more you explain the joke, the worse it gets.
They're always the best ones.
Those are actually the best band names. We'll talk
true?
A little bit about that later on.
Spoken like a real dad.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
So, Gregor, if you wouldn't mind, a lot of people know who you are, especially if they use Studio One or they are, on YouTube, learning from learning audio on YouTube University. But for anyone who doesn't know who you are, and certainly doesn't know your background, give us a quick introduction on who you are, what brought you to this point in your life, working on music, working for PreSonus. Fill us in, if you would, please.
Right. So whether people want to or not, they probably see my face in the Studio One RSS feed before, because I'm one of the main content creators. I have well over 220 videos now on a YouTube channel, if you can believe that. I checked that after a recent interview where somebody said, like, you have well over 200 videos on YouTube now. And I was like, what? How's that possible? But I wasn't always a content creator and educator on YouTube and the internet. I started making music at a pretty young age. I don't know how far you want to go back, but I enjoyed like a bit of a classical music education. I sang in a choir, if you believe that, at church when I was a kid. And
I did too.
You did? But I think that's more common in the US, right?
Yeah. I was in the choir. I did a little bit of church music, but mostly like middle school and high school. I was in the general chorus, men's chorus.
Right. Yeah. But that's very common in the US, I think, and also in Ohio, right? Like in Germany, it wasn't as common at the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Especially because it was like Catholic, like really old school stuff.
Yeah, it's not that common here either.
No?
Really?
No.
I guess it is common
I'm based in the UK.
In the UK, right. Yeah, in Europe, we're a bit more...
Yeah.
We're a bit more...
church is church. And
disconnected from the church somehow. Yeah. And I learned to play the trumpet. That was actually my first instrument. But
mine too.
Really?
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, I kind of regretted it because I was so into keyboard music and 80s music, like from age 12 onward, that I just spent all my time thinking like, I wish I would have played the keyboard. And I'm still not able to play keyboard very well until this day. Like, I guess my taste in music hasn't helped that much. You know, you mentioned that I'm pretty much into techno and these kind of genres, so you don't learn to play classical piano in that very well. But and then I started to make my own beats, on Magic's Music Maker or something at age 15, but just on the side. And music was always just a passion for me. I was mostly a fan of music, and I had my favorite bands, and I would travel to all their gigs, no matter where they played. And then at age 19, when I just finished school and was about to start university, we have like this in-between period of like a couple of months where you have vacation. One of my favorite artists actually came back on ICQ. I'm not sure if you guys remember that. You probably do.
Yes, of course I remember ICQ.
Yeah. The flower thing. Right? That's so old school. I'm so old.
Jeez.
Yeah. And he hasn't been online for months. And so I thought, that's cool. It was actually 3 a.m. at night. I was just about to log off from World of Warcraft or whatever I was doing at that time. I don't know. Probably something like that. I wasn't very, popular at school. And then I thought, I gotta reach out to him. And then he was basically replying with, so good that I meet you. I actually need to talk to you. I have a few questions. And the questions were like, what do you do in the next 30 days? Is there anything specific on your schedule? Also, how tall are you? He kind of tried to find out if I could fit like into a bunk bed in a nightliner. And then he basically asked a 19-year-old kid who's never been away from home for longer than like 1 week straight if he would go on a European tour with him and play 27 countries in 30 days. And I remember just basically waking up my parents to ask for permission, and my dad just laughed. He was just laughing. That's amazing. So absurd, the situation. So, and that's kind of basically the theme of my entire life. Like I don't expect something to happen, and I don't work towards it, and then it just happens. It's the same thing with PreSonus. A lot of people ask me, like, how do you get into this role? Like I would also really like to be a product specialist. I would also like to do YouTube content for like one of these major DAWs. How do you approach that? How do you strategize this career? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I never strategized. I never wanted this. I never planned for this to happen. It just happened. So I guess if you want to do it like me, the first step is to not want it, I guess, or not expect it at all. Because the way that came to be was after that tour, I kind of, got into more touring. So the band that was headlining this tour, which was Combi Christ, we already heard about them, they invited me back the same year for the US tour as a roadie so that I could help them out. And then, as it so happened, the support band for that show, they couldn't get a visa for the keyboarder, so I started keyboarding for that band, right? So it's all these coincidences that created opportunities that I just grabbed without thinking, and that has really led me to this spot where in 2015, I would have started my own studio. I basically did like freelance, mostly ghostwriting work, which really sucks. Basically, you sign away your credits, your name, and your rights to any song via NDA. And you get a bigger royalty for it, but often you deeply regret it because a lot of these songs really grow to your heart and nobody will ever know that you wrote them, basically.
Yeah. I could see that. I could see the issue with that, yeah.
And that's when I started using Studio One and I was running into a few problems. I tried to customize everything and try to get faster. I'm sure we're going to get to that, why I'm so passionate about it, like hotkeys and ergonomics and faster workflow, because for me, that was the only way to make a living, especially in a genre where, they would charge like 150 for an entire mix that took me like 48 hours. And if you would charge more than that, then you would effectively charge more than somebody who's done it for 30 years. So why would somebody, with all these credentials at the same price point not be a better pick, So I only doubled my income by being twice as fast. So I could finish 2 mixes in the same time. And then you basically make twice the money without raising prices for the customer. But in order to do that, I had to reach out to PreSonus all the time. And I was really getting on their nerves. I think when they saw Gregor Beyerle in their inbox, they were like, fuck, like that guy again. Probably. But that's how I got on the map. I mean, whenever Gregor is writing us an email, there is something in our software that's not right. And eventually that name became like synonymous with beta testing. And then at some point they needed somebody to do German speaking workshops and presentations. So I did that. At some point, they had an opening in sales, which was the only, remote position you could take pre-COVID, if you can believe that. And I had nothing to do with sales at all. But I took the job because I thought I really want to work for this company. And, that's the only bit of strategizing I've ever done, I guess, where I thought once I'm in that company, I will actually get to the position where I need to be. Then it turns out that people who are not caring much about sales and just love the product are actually really good at sales. So the sales team didn't want to let me go.
Great evangelist for the product.
Yeah. And then they didn't want to let me go out of that department anymore because my numbers were good. But I really wanted to, actually get to product. So that was a bit of an awkward situation.
So when did you
things just progress from there?
What version was it when you started talking to PreSonus about things that weren't working? Because we're up to, is it 7 now?
Yeah, we're
Studio
at
7. 7?
Yeah. It was version 2.0. I still have the product box over there. I don't think you can see it.
Wow.
Let me try. I don't think you can see that. Yeah. No. Maybe I can move this. Hang on. Let's see. Can I show this? There should be a box if I duck down. Do you see?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's a Studio One 2 product box. I'm not sure why I wanted to show that, but
that's where
I mean, it's a relic of the past. You don't get product boxes.
I found
anymore.
that last week in the basement, if you can believe that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So what year was that when that was all happening?
I think that was around 2014, maybe 13. I think that's when I started using Studio One. Before that, I was using Cubase.
Yeah. Well, you see, we don't need to do the end of show. What DAW do you use, Gregor? Question, do we?
Yeah, but we'll still do it anyways.
Are we still doing it anyway?
Fun.
Okay,
we'll still do it anyways. Yeah.
So, Gregor, what DAW do you use?
Neil, that's amazing. So I'm using Studio One, but I used to be a Cubase guy, and I never thought I would switch from Cubase because I kind of found my workflow there. But there were like 2 experiences I had that made me switch, and the first one was more gradual, and the other was very sudden and impulsive. Which one should I mention first?
Whichever you like.
Whichever you like.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, so the gradual thing was that when I started with my studio and I had these really low fees that were the maximum I could charge, I hit this brick wall where I was like, why can't the software help me? For example, when creating sound effects back in Cubase 4 or Cubase 3, right after it was not called SX, Cubase SX anymore. To create a send effect, you couldn't drag an insert effect plugin onto the send and it would create the return track. No. None of that. You actually had to right click and create an effect, and then you had to click on another drop down. Then you had to say the plugin, the manufacturer, whether it's mono or stereo for some reason. And then, I know. And then whether it's a VST3 or VST2. And
that's even worse than creating a sound effect in Pro Tools, which is arduous.
It was horrible back in the day, which I think was for all DAWs, actually. And it felt like filling an immigration form, basically. And I was like, I can't do 2 mixes a day like this. Like it's just impossible. It takes too long.
Just the administrative work in routing would probably take you half a day.
Yeah. And I was like spotting all these redundancies where I would always have to click here, then there, and always in this order. And there was no way to summarize that into one click. And that was kind of bothering me more and more because I felt like there must be a faster way. And then the second experience that I made, which was very impulsive, was I was on tour and I was playing with Cubase Live. And they had like this cheap plastic dongle. Way cheaper than it was or it is nowadays. It would like snap in half when you look at it wrong.
No, geez.
And so basically, I just opened up my suitcase and I pulled out the dongle, and it was just snapped in half. That was a sound check. I was like, "What do I do now?" Right? That was like basically, an emergency situation for me. I had no backup for some foolish reason. I only had Cubase at the time, and it served me well. And I never thought I would need one. So I tried to call their newly established emergency hotline for maintenance and for, replacement dongles and stuff of that nature. It was open between, I think, like 12 and 12:30. So I called them, and after like waiting in line for an eternity, they said that they could help me in 48 hours at the earliest. And I was like, but I'm playing tonight. So then I was just so fed up with dongles. I ended up like, downloading a pirated version of a software I bought legally, which I thought was just absurd. Why does somebody who bought the software have to pirate the version? That makes no sense.
Yeah, just to get you up and running for your show.
Just to get me on the stage,
you paid for it, so...
But I think that good copyright protection would not annoy the users who buy it legally, right? So that's, Yeah. And so then I looked at softwares that run without dongle, and then Studio One basically said, hey, we have 5 activations that you can manage and deactivate freely. Even if you're not on that computer, you can still deactivate it because we have some level of basic trust in our users. We don't think all people are bad, Yeah. And I appreciated that. And then I got into this whole drag and drop thing. I tried to drag a plugin into the send, and I saw that the return got created. Then I made my reverse reverb macro, and then I was completely sold. So,
yeah, it's pretty slick. I mean, I remember. Cool. So I used Studio One for quite a long time, but when I ended up only doing mastering, which is why I use Wavelab like every other mastering engineer in the world. But the speed with which the thing I was always amazed about with Studio One is it felt really intuitive, almost no matter which DAW you came from, whether you were a Logic user, Pro Tools user, Cubase user. It felt really intuitive in how to get something done, if that makes sense.
Totally.
It wasn't like you had to learn a new DAW. It was like, I want to put an audio track there, I want to put a track there, I want to route it to there, I want it to have this effect on it. Yeah, and also it allowed you to customize certain things. Like, for example, you could load the keyboard mappings of Cubase or Pro Tools when you get started. So you have that muscle memory as you're beginning. But also that if you don't agree with a certain keyboard shortcut assignment, for example, P on the keyboard would be to, set like a loop range or something like that. But if you're left-handed, then you probably need that somewhere else than when you're right-handed. And you could just reassign that. In fact, you could even add secondary keyboard shortcut bindings if you didn't want to override the default.
And then there's softwares like Ableton Live, and I'm just calling out Ableton Live because they're based in Berlin, which is such a progressive and liberal city, and it's all about the expression of the individual. But then they say we know what the best keyboard shortcut is, and you can't change it.
Yeah,
Which is just like that seems weirdly authoritarian for Ableton. And I like it's like that. Out of all companies, they should care like whether somebody's right-handed or left-handed and ergonomics and things of that nature. But they just there's still to this day no official explanation why Windows users on Ableton cannot change any keyboard shortcut assignments. To me, it makes no sense.
Yeah, it seems silly.
Ableton is the one. I think I'm going to make a wildly general statement. All DAWs are the same, right? I know they're not, but they all do the same thing, except for Ableton, which I find the most confusing thing I've ever looked at in my entire life.
Ableton is an
but people who
interesting beast.
love it.
I think Ableton just has such a different philosophy, and people don't realize that, and I blame YouTube for that. So many Ableton Live tutorials start with, so this is a session view. I don't really use that, so let's go over to the arrangement view. And basically, they just ignore 50% of the entire software and the point why it exists in the first place, and then basically present it like an inferior Pro Tools. But I think what makes Ableton so unique, it's already in the logo, right? You have like these 4 vertical lines and then these 4 horizontal lines. And that means you start with the vertical lines. Basically, they want you to record phrases, pattern.
Yeah.
And then in a jam session style, you can find combinations that work and then record song sections live. Recording live the song. It's not about performing, it's about recording.
I mean,
that's why the record button always triggers the timeline. Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of like what was it? Acid back in the early 2000s, where it was, dragging and dropping, loops and phrases and making songs, building songs, with blocks essentially. That's kind of what Ableton does, is it allows you to record. And if I'm getting this wrong, please tell me to shut up.
It's just my opinion as well. I cannot say, like only they could say. But the way I always understood it is that they wanted to make it very easy to hear the bass idea from the first hour that you produced, together with the drums from hour number 6, without moving anything on the timeline, which actually disincentivizes you to try it out in the first place because it's very tedious. They wanted to make it very easy to combine these ideas. This is also why people always say it's so fun to use Session View in Ableton. And it's such an integral part of the whole software. I mean, that's how they envision, from what I understand, how song sections get created, by recording these patterns in combination live, Ableton Live, right?
Yeah.
And without this introduction, though, this entire software is highly confusing. So I totally get where Ben is coming from, especially if you're a mastering engineer and you're more like in the linear, post-production kind of mindset.
Definitely.
And I believe Ableton Live is used a lot for live bands that do backing tracks.
Yeah, because they think that's why it's called Ableton Live. Yeah.
Yeah, and they also can sync up, like if they've got a MIDI controller connected to it, and they can signal the DMX light show or whatever to the backing tracks, and they can have the click in their ear and all that stuff.
That's a great point. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of YouTube channels that show how to do backing tracks, they're always using Ableton Live, and I think Studio One should have something similar.
Totally agree. Yeah. Also, the video track is always syncing up in Ableton, so it's very cool. Also for social media these days, if you want to have a video running together with your remix or something like that, Ableton is perfect for that. I think just because it's so good at live performances and running all that stuff, it almost gets like I don't want to say a bad rep, but people think it's more limited than it actually is. It's, to me, a fully fledged DAW that also does live production.
Yeah,
but it is also a DAW in its own right, and was quite unique until Bitwig came along, I think.
Now, but Studio One has a live page element to it, right?
Totally. We have the looper now, which is something that the launcher, basically, which I heavily advocated for.
Yeah. And so how much of that is like sort of in response to what Ableton does?
That's a great question. So I wish we went a little bit further, because Ableton is Ableton Live is one of my favorite DAWs ever. But I think we already got the the stuff that makes it great in place. For example, that it's very easy to redefine the start and the end point. So polyrhythms are, always just one click away, which is very interesting. I wish we could also decouple the automation pattern length from the actual pattern length. So imagine you have like a bass line that's repeating every 8 steps, but then you have a cutoff automation that repeats every 3 steps. And they never really align because one is odd and one is even. And then you get like these almost random but still structured variations with just a 2-3 clicks or so. And to me, that was always very fascinating. We don't have this particular part, but it's probably a bit too niche. One thing we do have, though, is it's super easy to drag linear arrangement sections onto the launcher and then back from the launcher in newly combined ways. That's something that Ableton always does, and I think we have that integrated pretty well. Yeah,
I think it would be really cool if Studio One, at least the live show, if they could also incorporate some sort of DMX controller into it. I think that would be really cool for live shows. I think that would be just like you would have the market, because right now the lower end DMX controller software like ADJ and some other software, they suck. It's awful. And I feel like if you guys integrated that into Studio One, that would be so powerful.
Mm-hmm, I agree.
Just a suggestion.
I love it. Yeah, one thing I could maybe suggest back to you if you don't want to wait so long is Ableton Link is something we brought to Studio One now. So it's very easy to link up Ableton Live with Studio One. So maybe you could just run Ableton Live intro or whatever, like a very cheap version of Ableton just for the DMX part of your show.
We were just last month's episode, guys. We were talking to Jeremy, and he was telling us about Ableton Link.
Ableton Link is amazing.
He uses Ableton for, his sort of idea creation, and then he connects the output of Ableton to an input in Pro Tools, and then, ships his audio into Pro Tools so he can build the overall session and
makes
the song. And I had never heard of that until he mentioned that. That's a really cool, like, utility.
That's how I envision the future.
To have this link between DAWs, because I mentioned to him, like, Rewire is long gone, and I think Rewire allowed you to kind of do that, but probably not very well. It seems like this Ableton Link thing is
so Rewire
really knocks
basically,
it out of the park.
Yeah, Rewire basically disabled one of the DAWs entirely and made it just a virtual instrument for the other. So it was very limited, right? For example, the so-called slave, or like the secondary DAW, it basically got everything disabled except maybe media routing and VST support. So it was really just meant as, an instrument rack, so you could play native stock plugins from another DAW. So very limited. But the idea that you could use 2 DAWs and you don't have to switch between them, you don't have to relearn anything, but the second DAW actually makes the first better. That's actually my big vision, I would say. And like, if I could, contribute to one thing happening in this industry, it would be that people start using DAWs in parallel more. When you think of Melodyne, for example, before ARA, which basically allows audio to be shared before the playback so that things that need a look ahead actually have time to process, you had to record into Melodyne as a separate DAW. You had to record into the buffer that basically made me absolutely go insane on Cubase. Back in the day when I didn't have ARA, I would record something into the Melodyne buffer, I would forget about it, I would delete all the regions on the timeline, and I would still hear it. And I was like, how is this track playing? There's nothing on it. Like, I would go absolutely insane. So it was super tedious. If you wanted to correct something, you always had to re-record into Melodyne. It was a nightmare.
Yeah.
And then we were basically suddenly able to use that secondary DAW, integrate it into your main DAW, and then it became a total game changer. So I wish, it would also be so great from a sales perspective if you could just sell a second DAW without implying that somebody has to give up everything they learned and start over. Like that, like the plugin companies, when they sell another great compressor, it makes your entire setup better. It's another option. It's not like, if you buy this compressor, please forget about the old compressor and relearn everything from scratch. Then nobody would buy a new compressor. But that's the reality with DAWs, right?
Yeah, because it's such a nightmare to learn a new DAW. To get
because they don't work together, they don't sync together, right?
And to get to if you're really proficient in Studio One, to then go, I'm going to move to Logic. I mean, that's a massive learning curve of how to do anything that you were doing in 2 minutes. And that's why people don't change DAW, isn't it? They get
also because they're separate.
Yeah.
They're not linked. They don't talk to each other.
Right.
But if they would, it would be an entirely different story. I mean, if the timelines were always synced, I could totally see people like Timbaland producing the beat in Ableton Live and doing the vocal editing on the side, on a half and half setup on a, like split window in Pro Tools. Do the vocal editing there, the comping. Yeah. All the stuff that Ableton doesn't have. I don't see why that wouldn't be possible. And Ableton Link basically gives us the entire functionality. There's tools like Jack Audio. I think Neil mentioned that, where you're basically able to just route DAW1 and DAW2 in the same bus, and then you can just export as one. So there's no stem exporting anymore back and forth. There's so many things that are just so obvious to me that are laying around for anybody to just go and run with, and nobody does it, which is kind of driving me insane. I had a video once where I showed that people in Ableton Live can just drag and drop their clips from the session view onto Studio One to use Melodyne and then drag it back, and they lost their minds over it. And this is like the most basic thing that we could do with a 2-DAW setup. And the DMX thing is another example of that, right? But that would require collaboration, which is a rare concept these days.
Well, yeah, that's a whole other ball of wax with, plugin companies and DAWs talking and cooperating and unifying hardware and software. Unifying hardware and software is a big deal. And
unifying competing softwares.
That's the thing,
exactly.
Isn't it?
I understand that, they want to protect themselves and whatnot, but also at the same time, people are gonna go and use the product that's easiest to use and does what they need it to do. And if that's not you, they're gonna go elsewhere, regardless of whether you want to play ball or not. So,
and if Studio One users, are trying to attract Ableton Live users, can they do that by saying you have to switch to join us?
Right.
Or can they do that by saying if you go with us, we make your Ableton setup better?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I actually switched back to Pro Tools. And part of the reason is that whole trying to learn a DAW thing. Studio One works on Windows, which is why I switched in the first place. And it does have those cool drag and drop features that Pro Tools didn't have. Well, they kind of do now, but not as intuitive.
They're starting to.
It's starting to. But it was my first DAW, and it came with my audio interface, and I've just always had Pro Tools. And so switching to Studio One just didn't feel very musical to me. It looked different. I'm going to say something controversial. I think Studio One looks ugly. I'm sorry. To me, it doesn't.
No offense taken.
Hey, man.
It doesn't look musical to me when I'm adding the tracks and stuff. The whole look just looks wrong to me, and so that's why I've switched back. But I still use Studio One for my live rig because I don't have to carry around. I think there's a digital iLock now, but I don't care. I don't want to lose the session in the middle of a live performance.
Do you mean Studio One
or yeah? No, I don't use Pro Tools because it's a pain in the butt to install that onto my live rig. So, but my in-studio rig here, I use Pro Tools now.
So you are genuinely a multi-DAW user.
Yeah. Yay! And I'm also Logic Pro certified, which is stupid.
For the one
I don't use Logic.
No.
Yeah, I don't use Logic.
No, but I think it's very good to be proficient in multiple DAWs because, especially when you have clients, they often have their sessions in a particular DAW, and stem export is possible, but they're often very challenged by that. And if you can just help them, if you know the rudimentary export controls at least of any major DAW, that's already a competitive advantage.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly believe in, especially if you're a working producer or mixing engineer, being able to accept sessions from, other producers and artists that they've worked in. Like, getting stems is great, but you run the risk of losing some of that mojo when you export sessions, or when you export stems. If you can just absorb that session and either pick it up and work from there, like a lot of people do in Pro Tools, or pick and choose what you want to export, and it really is a really good way to work. I think that everyone should have access to other DAWs if they're a working professional.
Yeah, one of our approaches in that regard is DAW project. I'm not sure if you're aware of that new file standard that we made. So basically, we started creating this with Bitwig, and there's more DAWs that are now joining this. I think even Logic supports it now, if I'm not mistaken.
Really?
I'm not sure. Don't take my word for it. I have to double check that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But it's basically like when you use automation, or if you're even using stock plugins, it will translate those into, the closest thing on that other DAW, so that you can open the session without problems. Also the regions where they're being trimmed, where they are located on the arrangement, even the colors and all of the third-party plugins, they're being recalled seamlessly in the other DAW. Mm-hmm. And this is all to make, switching sessions easier, because I think if we just keep our walled garden with these DAWs, and we keep it the way that AAF is like the most modern file standard that we allow, then we're all shooting ourselves in the foot, basically, because people are just not using just one DAW these days. They're exporting stuff all the time, and we need to help the customer with that to not lose them at some point.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, it definitely seems as you say, it seems because there's quite a few different manufacturers who are sort of accepting that as we should allow you to send sessions between different DAWs without making it the most painful thing that's ever happened. So, yeah, you see quite a few mentions of it in the media of it starting to really take off.
You're talking about the session itself, right? Like the dot .proj, right? Or something like that? Or?
Yeah. Project, .dot project. And so, for example, when you save something in Studio One as .dot project and you open it up in Bitwig, in theory, if you have used the Pro EQ, which is native to Studio One, and you have a low cut at 120 hertz, then Bitwig would open that up with their native EQ with the same setting. And also third-party plugins like your instruments, your presets, your automation should all be seamlessly recalled.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty good. It looks good. I think it would be remiss of us to have you here and not let you do a bit of an overview for people who are not Studio One users. I think, I know it's got different sections in it now, so I've used the project section for mastering, and but walk us through, I think, is it song, show and project? I think we should at least let Gregor
that's a good idea.
Give us a quick overview of the different sections within Studio One that people might not know about.
Elevator speech. Sell us on Studio One.
Elevator pitch. There we go. Should I share my screen, or should I just talk through it for the podcast people? Okay, that's better. Yeah. So maybe some of the listeners and viewers are familiar with DaVinci Resolve, for example. In video editing, they also have a similar concept where they looked at the entire workflow start to finish. When you start, your initial idea to the finished product, what are these steps and how can you categorize these steps, and then create separate dedicated layouts that are optimized for that particular step. And you're moving basically from one to the other as you're progressing towards your release. So in Studio One, basically we start on the start page. That's basically where you say, hey, I need to create a template, or I need to start, a new song, and then you have something ready for beat making. So when you click on that, then you get a 16-step sequencer, similar to how Fruity Loops does it, for example, where you can just enter beats right away. Or when you're recording a live setup, then you could select a template where all of your audio interface inputs are already armed and ready to record and multi-track. So that's basically where we start. Then you go to the song page. This is basically where all the editing happens, where you record and produce your music and also mix it. From there, we made it very easy to send it to the mastering environment, which is called the project page. And what's really cool is that if you're encountering problems in the mastering stage, you can always revert back to the song project, make the changes there, and then update the master file. So it's kind of, breaking this very static process of first songwriting, then mixing, then mastering. It can be very fluid. You can move in between these states, so to say. And then we have a show page. So from the project page or the song page, you could send to the show page. For example, you could send all of the instruments that you used in your song to the show page to use them live and play them live on a keyboard. And so basically we try to cover all of these stages. And the benefit of that is that you don't have to bloat the UI so much with unrelated commands on that particular page. So if I'm on the song page, it's clear that I'm looking for songwriting and production workflows. So all of these mastering commands are not visible. And so you kind of prevent having all these sub-menus, like on my PlayStation, just to turn it off these days, I have to go to page 6 and then go 3 sub-menus down to do the most basic things, just turn that freaking thing off, right? And to me, that's like an absolute UI nightmare. But it's bound to happen if you just keep adding features without taking anything away or categorizing it. Right. It's similar to how your house is just being, hoarders, right? Like at some point where you just keep assembling stuff without putting it away, bad things can happen.
And I guess it's effectively what you've done. I mean, if you take it in the sort of Cubase world, you've got Cubase and Wavelab, and they're 2 bits of software. What you've actually done is had one piece of software that is
hence Studio One.
Hence Studio One. There you go. Yeah, it's very good. I do think the UI interface and the way that you've designed that to work through the different stages is very good. It's very good.
Yeah, well, I can't take any credit for it, but it's interesting to note that it was designed by a frustrated Cubase developer. Matthias Juvan, our CTO, was a Steinberg developer and frustrated with a lot of the legacy code that this software was just basically carrying around since the 90s. So many root folders and so many pages of source code that nobody really understood anymore. And at some point, I think he just wanted to start with a clean slate.
Yeah.
So it's also, built on a maybe slightly more modern code base, although I'm not a developer myself, so I can't speak to that.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit. So let's talk about your current musical projects, the 2 groups that you're involved in, and to that extent, any production projects that you might get hired for. I'm sure that you use Studio One for a majority, if not all, of those projects. But you're also a hardware sort of, enthusiast, right? You've got actual synthesizers around you and knobs and buttons and whatnot. So with your current musical production with Reaper and Voltmeister, like how do you integrate hardware and software into those? Do you start generating ideas in the physical realm and then move over to your computer and DAW? What are some of your favorite features in Studio One or in Ableton, if you do anything there? Like, what are some of your favorite DAW features that you utilize to help create your music?
It's a great question. So I should preface this by saying that I use Studio One mostly for all of my professional contracting work, like for mixing and mastering jobs, for ghostwritings. I've done that in Studio One always. But when it comes to my personal music, at some point I found that if I'm already spending like 8-9 hours a day in this room, staring at this screen, then I can't do my songwriting in the same environment. It's just a bit too monothematic. I don't know how to say it. It's a bit too monothematic. It's a bit too monotone. And I can't just live in one room all the time. No. And also I made this experience that if I was inspired and I would do songwriting in Studio One and I would encounter something that is an unexpected behavior or a bug, I would snap out of that songwriting mode to log a ticket as long as I could still reproduce that, right? I would basically shift gears and go back into my work mode. And I'm like, why am I working at 11 p.m.? That makes no sense, right? So I started looking at ways I could express myself in a different environment. So most of my music for Voltmeister, for example, I write on a Push 3 standalone without any computer involved. And I use modular synthesizers that I'm recording into the Push. And it's basically a fully hands-on workflow that doesn't involve a DAW at all. It's DAW-less jamming, if you will. And what makes Voltmeister a bit special is that it's a very improv-based setup. So basically I meet up with other people in a collective that have modular synthesizers and we just jam together. We agree on a key and a tempo and we just go and we see what happens. We record that onto stems and then arrange that in Studio One. But the entire songwriting process happens outside of it. Now for Reaper, it's a bit more complicated because it depends on the album. Like some of the albums were in part produced in Studio One. I think these days they're all made in Studio One because I'm not the main guy in that project. But there I would always recommend people to not use too many different plugins. I would say go with maybe like 3 or 4 big plugin companies that are likely to still update their plugins in 5 years from now, because you end up breaking your backward compatibility entirely.
Yeah.
Like I have the issue if I try to open up a song from just 5 years ago, there's so many plugins missing because I used them from, smaller developers who didn't feel like doing maintenance for a plugin anymore, as their macOS has updated their security permissions once again, and then it leaves you with a broken session. And I find that the plugins, they're also high quality these days. I mean, nobody can tell me that you get a worse sound from a stock equalizer than from a boutique plugin. They're all so good. They're all 64-bit float headroom, more than you could ever need. And the stock plugins, the days where they were maybe inferior to boutique plugins are long gone. And if you're with stock plugins, you will never have to deal with these backward compatibility issues. They will always work. So I would say if there's a few plugins that you just can't do without, at least make sure that it's from developers who are likely to maintain production of these, because that's a lesson I learned way too late. I always had like all the plugins from all the people, and not only did that create anxiety where I thought, is that even the best plugin to use? Maybe that's an even better limiter, maybe an even better tube distortion for this 808, where it paralyzed me in my decision making. It also, created all these maintenance tasks and all these hours of updating plugins and crashing sessions. This one plugin is enough to crash your entire session. People don't realize that.
Yeah.
People think Pro Tools crashes a lot, Cubase crashes a lot, Studio One crashes a lot, and some people who run the same DAWs say it never crashes. The difference is that they have one rogue plugin that's just crushing the entire host, and nobody realizes it.
I can't tell you how many times I've been on the Studio One Facebook groups and somebody's throwing out fireballs saying Studio One sucks, it keeps crashing, and everyone's like, what are you talking about? Like, everyone here is saying it works fine, and I kid you not, 10 times out of 10 it's a rogue plugin. And if you just go and uninstall that plugin and reinstall it, whatever issue was there is cleared up, and so you're good to go. It happened to me. I had an issue back in I think it was Studio One 5. I was experiencing just tons of crashes whenever I would load an isotope plugin. And I didn't understand what was happening, but I figured out that it was whenever I did something in isotope or with an isotope plugin, it would crash. And so I uninstalled everything, even the installer application. I wiped it all from my computer, reinstalled it, and the problem went away.
The single most effective thing that tech support can do in a DAW is teach their customers to read crash logs, at least at a basic level. So on macOS, it's very easy. Usually you get like this send to Apple window that opens up. I'm sure we've all seen that before. And it says crashed thread with a number. So for example, on my system, it would say like crashed thread 9. And then you can just scroll down to thread 9 and you will see the last task that it tried to perform. And if it mentions the plugin over and over and then it just stops, then you know that plugin crashed. And this kind of advice, when you give that to their customers, that can already, decrease the amount of tickets that they write by 80%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know that, so I've learned something on this podcast.
There you go.
I mean,
on Windows, it's a bit more difficult. You need a console reader.
Windows is a pain in the ass to read crash logs. Event Viewer in Windows, if you can read between the lines, you can pick up on similar things. Like it'll kind of tell you in Event Viewer what happened. It's not as direct as Apple's crash.
Maybe it was I'm sorry. Maybe it was the Slate plugins that I had that kept crashing my Pro Tools back in the day. Maybe it was
maybe
that.
So.
Yeah,
I mean, it's often the plugins, especially when people running the same DAW have zero problems. That's already very suspicious. Usually, process of elimination is the way to go then, or what we try to do in Studio One when you start after a crash. We have this window where we say start with options. We try to actually tell you which plugin it was.
Well, it was Windows 10. Like once Windows 10 came out, like Pro Tools didn't want to work. It wasn't just the Slate plugins, but yes, the plugins can crash Pro Tools, but it was definitely once they came out with Windows 10 and they forced everybody into it, and then Pro Tools just stopped working for a lot of people.
It was the Windows Defender also. They like Microsoft made it a top priority to fight malware, and a lot of plugins were just basically classified as malware erroneously, and the Defender was just shutting them all down and killing the host in the process, because people don't realize you can't just quit one plugin thread. You have to kill the host. Right, so you will see that in your task manager, for example. Your plugins don't show up as separate threads. It's just one thread, the DAW. And so if a plugin goes rogue inside of that, there's a Stack Overflow or whatever, it just kills the whole application. It's like it's very primitive. It basically takes,
so that's
huge weapon and just shuts it down.
That's an interesting thing about Windows Defender. Now, I don't know how it works over in Apple land, but I know that with Defender and its real-time scanning, that can really cause a problem for your system, especially if you have it set to scan you haven't whitelisted anything. I was talking with a friend about a year ago, and he was complaining about how slow his plugin scanning took. He said it would take 5-6 minutes to scan his, few hundred plugins. Nothing terribly crazy. I have close to 2,000 plugins that I have to scan through, and it takes me it takes me 7 seconds. It's done in 7 seconds.
You should still get rid of them.
I probably should.
I reckon you're not using more than 100.
Oh, shush, Ben.
Ben is absolutely right.
Shush, Ben.
Yeah,
I like my plugins. Thank you very much.
I mean, Nate, you use the plugin manager. There you can actually sort them by last time used. Yeah. I think you would be very shocked.
Fascinating.
All right. Now you're... All right. We're ending this call. Bye.
Goodbye.
And you won't need any tape plugins now, Nate, because you've got a tape machine.
No. But if you whitelist your VST directories, then the real-time scanning will go away. It won't real-time scan anymore, and it'll speed things up with your plugin scans.
100%.
Now, it doesn't mean don't have your antivirus check those directories. Just don't have them real-time scan.
Also, when you do real-time, they have to make the decision incredibly fast, right? Basically, any thread could be something that is, killing your computer. And then in real-time, it has to make a decision so fast, it can't check a lot of databases. And then it basically just deems it, when in doubt, malicious. And that can just, that's causing havoc, on audio systems, which is part of the reason why so many audio studios are offline entirely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a legitimate business decision to keep your DAW workstations offline.
Do you know, Gregor, the sort of split between Mac and Windows as far as Studio One is concerned? Do you know? Because I always had the whole of the music business runs on Mac. That was always my belief until recently. But I don't know. Do you have any sort of understanding of what that install base looks like for Studio One?
Yeah, I can't give you the exact numbers, but it's certainly a majority of Windows users, for sure. I think that's also part of the marketing, where we tell people that it's Logic on Windows or something, which is nonsense, but it's a pitch that has worked very well.
Well, also, hey, if your Pro Tools doesn't work, Studio One will fire right up. You don't
exactly. You can even import your keyboard shortcuts from Pro Tools, right?
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So it's got a really big install base on Windows users.
I mean, most audio computers are Windows, not Mac. Okay. I think that's just on the higher level where it's getting more Mac.
That's interesting, because that's the assumption that you're not a music producer.
I think the data doesn't support that. I think most of our users by far, and I think it's the same for all cross-platform companies. It's Windows as a majority.
Interesting. Wow. I would not have said that.
I really, I did not think.
I think of all the home producers, right, who do music on the side. I mean,
I just assumed they all had a
computer.
I assumed they all had a MacBook, and that was
that. I mean, the MacBook market share is not as big as you would think. No.
Yeah, interesting.
Maybe it's bigger in America. Is that
Even there, I thought it would
Really?
be greater. I think it's the third or like a quarter or something. Last time I checked,
Wow.
like for everybody. Yeah,
I was
That is
not expecting
really
that.
surprising.
I have to check that out. Please double check this information. Let me Google that before I tell you nonsense.
No, I mean that was one of the reasons I asked. Is we were sort of talking about running Studio One on Windows, and I was really because I mean I've only ever run audio software on a Mac. It's just that was my assumption that that's what you did, but clearly.
Now, what about the Linux users out there? I know Ableton runs
Guys.
on Linux.
Sorry to interrupt. I just Googled this. MacBook market share in the US. Do you want to take a guess?
MacBook market share in the US.
45%.
14.8%
of all
Really?
of all laptops.
14.8. Yes, according to
Of
Google.
all laptops, yeah, that's where
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy, huh?
I get that, and then I suppose if you're looking at that kind of percentage, then people who are installing audio software are still going to be
Exactly.
in that kind of percentage, aren't they?
Because most are hobbyists.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Interesting.
Sorry to cut you off, Nate. I was just so excited.
No, that's a good stat. I did not.
Yeah,
I'm really
We don't-
surprised at that number.
we don't do stats on this podcast very
We're all
often.
in that
don't.
bubble. We're all in that bubble. We get just ads from Apple all the time. And
Yeah.
we think that's the world. Right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
actual facts on our podcast. Who would have thought that?
Unthinkable.
We are not fake news. Look at that.
Not this month.
Not this month.
Not this month. Shit.
Excuse me.
All right. What was I saying? I don't remember. Let's move on. So,
I'm so sorry.
no, it's quite all right. Let's keep this thing moving. Let's see here. So, let's talk a little bit. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because I know you really can't say a whole lot, Gregor, but Fender and PreSonus.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people were really upset that Fender bought PreSonus and took over, operations and whatnot. A lot of people were afraid that what happened to Cakewalk when Gibson bought them, would happen here. And I don't believe that that's the case at all. I think that those sort of first couple of months of uneasiness, when that acquisition happened, I think that's gone. But there's been a couple of things that have happened most recently. The issue with the whole logins being switched over to the Fender platform, and then people again being like, "Oh no, it's falling apart. We're not getting support anymore," and this and that. So I'm wondering, what can you talk about to assuage everybody's fears that Fender is burying Studio One, that we're not being told, or that the Go Studio application is not going to be the de facto DAW going forward. Like Studio One's not going anywhere, right? Like, and we're still getting
anywhere.
updates.
I
Fender is
totally
not
get-
trying to stab Studio One and throw it in the back of a trunk and drive it to the Hudson River and dump it in the river, right? Like, yeah.
And say like, I have nothing in the
Yeah,
trunk.
exactly.
No, I can totally ease everybody's feelings. I totally get the analogy between Gibson and Cakewalk and Fender and PreSonus, but there's some major differences. For example, when Gibson acquired Cakewalk, there were already massive firings, and a lot of the developers of the original Cakewalk team were let go, and it was already a declining business. PreSonus was acquired at the height of the success. That was the first time we actually broke 100 million, I think, in revenue. And the software team is still identical and has, in fact, almost doubled. And so it's a completely different trajectory. It's not even comparable because none of the people that were working on PreSonus Studio One are not there anymore. They're just, basically equipped now with more resources and more budget to work on, a more long-term success. So that is number one. The other thing about the server migration, that was largely due to social media logins. They really created a big problem for us. We thought that social media logins would just carry over seamlessly to another server, but it turned out that just wasn't the case. And then we also had like this massive droppage of these AWS, like Amazon Web Services.
Yeah, it didn't help that happened.
That didn't help, and the timing was horrible.
Yeah, the timing was really bad with that.
Yeah, I had we just promised people it was running again, and then this basically took out the majority of the world. But people were already so agitated. I think the biggest issue is that we had this video, the future of Studio One, where we kind of signalized that we wanted to go more for subscription, because from a developer side, it makes sense. Right. If you have a steady income stream, then there's no reason to hoard up and to save up on all these features and bug fixes to justify a major release. You can just release them right away. So it's a very agile idea. Yeah. But unfortunately, the numbers just have shown that most people are actually still gravitating towards perpetual licenses. That's just the way it is.
I think people are subscriptioned out, man. I mean, everything in our life,
everything
is
but there's also a lot of frustration with
subscription.
Yeah. There's also a lot of frustration with it seems, and especially since the perpetual prices dropped, there's just a lot more of a demand for a perpetual license, which is part of the reason that we just basically shifted a lot of our efforts towards a big release soon. Yeah.
So does that mean that the quarterly updates that were talked about with this subscription model going forward, is that are we reverting back now to sort of the way things were?
Well, not entirely, because I think when you look at 7.1, 7.2, the splice integration, and another update that we will have soon, we're not that far off. I mean, it's not exactly what we had in mind. But there definitely just has been a strategic shift, I would say, based on what the majority of our customers want, which seems to be a perpetual license with major features and a major overhaul, rather than a gradual, development towards something.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So then, what can you give us? What nuggets? What droplets can you give us?
I can give you
that's coming up.
Just wait for a little bit longer. There will be something very soon.
Will there be something with an actual Fender logo on it?
I cannot comment on that, unfortunately.
Well, you heard it here, folks. Something's coming. We just don't know what it is.
Exactly.
Something's coming.
But also, I think a lot of the people who are asking for this, I'm not sure what features they're exactly waiting for.
Well, everyone seems to want something different. I mean, there's a few common threads, but it's kind of all over the place from what I've picked up from other people.
Yeah, but I often find that they're asking for things that we already have. Like they ask for a better way to save and recall, channel presets or mixer layouts, and all of that is so powerful ever since version 6. You can literally drag any channel or any track to the right. You don't even have to put it into the correct section of the browser, and it will just save it as a track or channel preset, and recalling it will restore it exactly like it is. It's like, I think, save anything, drag to the right, and load anything, drag to the left. Right. It's so powerful. Or the splice integration kills the entire need for loop libraries entirely, and gives commissions back to smaller artists, because the splice feature suggests human-made music from page 350 of Splice, because that happens to match your timing signature, your genre, your idea. You would have never found this guy. Like, I got so many suggestions from somebody who has 20 samples on Splice. There's nothing. And this AI curator, museum curator, if you will, found the sample for me to use, and now this artist is getting a commission from it. I mean, that wasn't on my AI bingo card for this year, that it would actually do something good.
Well, let's talk about that. So how has AI shaped your music making, and where do you see AI going with the future of Studio One? We got the stem separation, like most DAWs have nowadays. Hopefully, that's going to be improving. Are we going to see any sort of Suno-esque integrations into Studio One?
I hate Suno with a passion. So basically, we have to, I think, differentiate between two different kinds of AI. I think people don't realize that there's two entirely different philosophies that are relevant for DAWs. One is assistive and one is generative AI. And one of them puts, for me, the human artist still very much at the front and the center, and basically just tries to reduce the amount of redundancies and tedious work. Nobody likes searching for the correct snare sample for 8 hours. Nobody likes to listen to unrelated suggestions as you're trying to move quickly to find the correct bass sound. Nobody likes that. So if AI...
But hang on a second. What else am I going to do on a Friday night if I'm not searching for a snare sample?
Great point.
You could have a life, Nate, and go out and see live music.
But what about the memes with the skeleton still looking for the right sample? Like, what if we can't post those
exactly.
anymore? Those ones with like the spider web on the mixer console and everything. Yeah, but this is the kind of AI that is great. It basically does the tedious work, so we can do more art.
Right.
Less time is passing between initial idea and realization on the timeline, which means the timeline has more to do with your initial idea because there was less time for distraction in the middle. And then there's the AI that basically lets you do the tedious work, the prompting, so it can do more art, which is kind of turning it on its head. And that to me is Suno. You do all the stuff that's not fun, and the AI gets to do all the fun stuff like instrumentalization and chord progressions. And I just don't. That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know why people would want that. This is basically like the hyper-capitalist fever dream to me, where they think that becoming a musician and living that is a tedious process that needs to be hyper-accelerated. But you can also increase musical output so much that it becomes meaningless,
Yep.
Well, I mean, we've already seen the sort of like sort of market destabilization, the what's the word I'm looking for?
That is probably it, yeah.
Music has become less meaningful with subscription services, right? Like artists make pennies for their streams. So no one has a real incentive to go out and buy a CD or a record. That's decreasing. Even though record sales are on their way up, most people still subscribe to a streaming service. So there's that sort of devaluing. That's the word I was looking for. Devaluing of music and music generation. Then
we have to differentiate a little bit, I think, when it comes to subscription, because there's also the subscription that gives you all of the instruments, all of the tools, and the DAW that the professionals use at the price of 2 cups of coffee a month, where you had to buy the Waves Mercury bundle before you even got started just 10 years ago.
I feel so bad for somebody who dropped $15,000 on a Waves Mercury
if I was
bundle.
19 years old, I would have killed for the subscription offers of today when it comes to music companies. Oh my God. And of course, you're right. These big streaming services not paying anything anymore for subscription. At the same time, we don't have the middlemen when it comes to marketing anymore. You can just market directly to your fans and reach them in a magnitude that was never possible. I think there's just a lot of new opportunities and old opportunities fading. Yeah.
It's different. It's like you now have access to music that you'd have to actually go out and buy, but now you can oh hey, you're an artist. Oh, what's your name? And they can just look it up and boom.
Yeah, you also have small artists on Patreon which get monthly support in numbers that musicians haven't seen in decades. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Anyone from anywhere can really accomplish what couldn't be done 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So there's the benefits to me.
It is definitely very cool.
There's drawbacks and there's benefits.
Yeah. We just have to be very mindful and not forget what we want, because there's also a lot of dangers in the future.
Yeah.
Now I do get looking at these AI generated bands and remixes, and when I watched a remix the other day of a Foo Fighters song that was redone in this sort of 80s sort of ballad-esque yacht rock, and it was so damn good.
Yacht rock is back.
Yes, yacht rock is so back. It's so good, but it was such a good remake, and it was all done entirely in AI, and it's it's horrifying and exciting. And I don't know what to feel,
I don't know what to feel
anymore. What to feel about this, because there's so much that opens up possibilities for ideas and generating ideas with AI and in the assistive format, but then also in the generative format. I could never compete against that. I can't make a song like that. Why would anyone approach me to hire me for something like that if they can just hop onto their local AI platform and crank out a hit?
Yeah, but at the same time, it's still a second tier thing. It's fun. It's fun to listen to see what AI can do.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a fun game at this point.
Yeah, but it's just a different level, but it's still a different level.
Are we destroying ourselves in the process?
I wouldn't go that far just yet. Just yet. You know what I'm saying? Right now, it's still just AI. It's that's an AI generated band.
Are we signing our own death certificates? I don't know.
Probably.
Genie's out the bottle. It's only going to get
Probably, but it's not there yet.
It's only going to keep going. I mean, it's not like
exactly.
it's not like we're
Yeah.
going to get to an event horizon and walk back from it.
But
What's
there's
the
still
most dystopian thing that you guys have seen? I'm curious because for me it was like this commercial that I saw. It was like an ad where somebody was hearing what their voice would sound like if they could sing, and they were moved to tears. And I thought that's just so fucked up.
that's mental.
But
isn't it?
don't know.
that's still just
I don't know what the
for
most
fun
dystopian
though.
thing is.
But
I've seen. I mean, the sort of the AI thing that I think stood out the most to me is there was an Adidas advert that was completely AI generated, wasn't there? And,
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And you just think, wow. I mean, they've done away with an entire ad agency and have just AI generated a TV commercial.
or that AI generated actress. Did you hear about
yeah,
that?
right. Yeah, exactly. I don't know,
That's-
man.
That's kind of scary.
I feel like
That's scary.
we're Icarus and we're flying a little too close to the sun right now.
I feel that too. Yeah, what Nate was saying earlier, like I don't know what to feel anymore. Like that's certainly me as well.
Yeah.
But we can all take solace in knowing that, like, hey, there's still no replacement for humans getting out and just
That's
rocking
exactly
a
right.
live
You're
show.
absolutely right.
I think
and
that is
having real fans and having real people follow you and follow your real music.
Yeah.
Yes, there may be. We're going to enter an age where there's AI music. Yes, and it's going to be for like, oh, I'm working out and there's a AI song somewhere, and you're just pumping iron or some shit, or you're at a club and it's some bullshit, dance song or whatnot.
I mean,
There's
if it comes on in the
nothing-
background, whatever.
Yeah.
it's
yeah, background
fine.
music or
But if that becomes mainstream, then that will still create demand for the opposite again. That's always how it goes, right? And then you will crave something that actually sounds imperfect. It sounds like it has flaws, or it has like, something truly creative about it. I mean, these AIs, they can recycle information that's already there, but they can never come up with something entirely new, which is something we humans very much can. And I believe in that creative spirit. And I think even if that mainstream music would become AI, like that would at the same time create like a counter movement 5 to 10 years down the line.
That's
It has always happened.
exactly what I was going to say. Is that for every mainstream culture that there's always a counterculture to
Always.
go along with it, and that will never go away. It may be small, but it will always be there, and it will ebb and flow and get larger and smaller and expand and contract as the seasons go on. So
I have a fun analogy here, and that is chess, which you kind of
oh, we haven't even talked about
mentioned.
that yet. Oh, shoot.
Brilliant
Okay.
segue, and we don't have to talk about that for
No.
very long. I know
Please.
this is a very edge thing.
Proceed.
Nobody of you plays chess, right? None of you. right?
When I was younger,
I suck at it.
played a
I'm
little bit.
awful.
So the only reason I bring it up is because when computers started to beat humans at chess for the very first time, we all remember like Deep Blue, playing Kasparov at the World Trade Center in New York, and then he was like storming away with, his hands like that. And we thought this is the end of chess. It's basically the next tic-tac-toe. Something fascinating has happened there. So at first we thought that computers are going to solve the game now. But actually, it turned out that all of these refuted openings where people said in the 1900s, this is unplayable, it's all playable. Like you can play more openings in chess now than you could ever before. And the computer was actually showing us that this game is so inherently balanced. It's always a draw with perfect play. But humans against human, they can never play perfect. And that led to a situation where surprising your opponent in the opening is the most important thing you could do. Like look at the line that people 300 years ago thought were unplayable and find the nuance with a computer that shows it actually is playable if you know the point of it. And if and I think something very similar can happen here. We think it's the end of music, but it could also open up an entirely new world.
Yeah. It's a good way of looking at it. It could teach us something because it sees every possible option.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, computers made chess so much more exciting. Like watching chess now is so much more exciting than before computers.
Yeah.
What an interesting concept. Yeah,
And nobody thought that would happen. Everybody thought that's the end of the game.
chess. Yeah,
basically. Yeah.
Computers
we
have
find the
solved
move
it.
where white always wins if you do this. Yeah.
Computers finished chess. That's what they
Yeah,
did.
the opposite happened. It said like, no, like the French that like Stein said is the worst opening in existence is totally one of the best.
Amazing.
So is
Yeah, I'm
chess,
pretty good
is
at
chess
Connect
your
4.
like
Sorry.
I'm good at Connect 4.
I play a lot of Connect 4 on the chessboard, so like the pawns just go like.
So you do a lot of traveling with your chess games,
How
right?
do you know that? Yes, I do. Yeah, sometimes.
Well, I see your posts on Instagram where you're going to like the Netherlands and stuff like that. But so is chess like a sort of like de-stressing tool for you? Like it's your
100%.
escape?
Well, it stresses me a lot, but it also is a great relaxation. I believe that if you really want to relax from your work, if you're really like, not burned out necessarily, but like overwhelmed, then the biggest relaxation is by creating the biggest contrast. What do I mean by that? So when you're basically sitting on a computer screen for your work all the time, then do something that doesn't involve any screens at all. So for example, for me, it would be a wooden board. It's just like that, The internet, the world of opportunities with just 64 squares and inherent limitations. And then don't work, with digital stuff, but like analog wood or something,
Yeah.
And don't have your phone in hand, but basically just hyper focus on one thing. And by basically doing the exact opposite of what I usually do, that's when relaxation happens for me. Something that I would also recommend to you guys. So basically, if you have like a high demand, high workload job, try to do the opposite of that in your free time. And I think that's really when you can actually relax, because your brain will shut off. It's not used to that.
That's why I play Sudoku.
Yeah.
It's perfect. Exactly. Yeah. With a pen instead of a mouse, similar. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to do a couple of Sudoku puzzles every now and then.
Yeah, chess players and Sudoku players have a lot in common, I think. Yeah.
I think Nate wants to challenge you to a chess game.
Yeah, no,
I think
that's
what this is. I think this is what this is all about.
You completely misread that, Neil. You're terrible at reading the room, buddy.
No, he's great at it. I think it was funny because I was at the Fender office a few years ago, and then we were staying at a hotel, and all the Fender executives, they all wanted to play me. I didn't ask for it, but like somehow they all wanted to play me. And
you should have started taking bets, man. You could have made like some real scratch there.
Hustling.
They all lost. King of the donkeys.
You should have been charging like $20 a pop, dude.
Yeah, it's funny, because when I play at my local chess club, there's always that 80-year-old kid who's better than you, but you actually forget how far you've come. I also see that in music all the time. People forget how many people they already surpassed because they always keep looking up the hill and who's still ahead of them, who knows more than them, that they forget, like you're actually a champion. You're like, so many people look up to what you do and wish they could do something as good as that one day, people wish they could master like Ben does, probably 99% of people, and there's just 1% of mastering engineers that Ben looks at and thinks like, oh, or like 0.1% and thinks like, oh, they're actually really good, and that's all he sees, right? And
yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
you're always looking up. You're always looking sort of up the echelon, aren't you? You never sort of take stock of where you sort of think you are in that. You're always looking at
exactly.
I wish I could be that, or.
And I was like a local attraction at this hotel. Like I'm like the like the fifth best player here locally at best, but it was more than enough to beat the entirety of Hollywood, And when people think you're like a grandmaster or something, when it could be nothing further from the truth. But it's sometimes good to look what you've already achieved. We don't do that.
Yeah,
enough,
we don't.
We don't do that enough, and I fall into that as well. Lots of
I
wish
who love your albums. For
I
sure.
wish I could ... somewhere in the future, and you forget what you've accomplished just as late as last week. So so the moral of today's episode is reflect more upon your successes and do something opposite of what you do to disconnect.
I love that. Yeah, that's a great summary. And I would also say, like, if you get really frustrated sometimes with yourself, you also have to be very proud of yourself to balance that, because in all things, like also when it comes to I don't know, music making or, creating an album where a customer is satisfied, don't take that as the expected result. Take that as a win.
Yeah.
Because when you get frustrated with yourself, when you get, feedback and iteration requests or, but then you don't get proud when there's none and you think that's just normal, then an emotional shift happens where it's more likely that you get frustrated than that you feel proud. And that's the perfect recipe to start hating something, because every time you do it, it's more likely to make you feel bad because you don't celebrate your successes with that. Just those are a given, those are expected results, but the frustrations you carry around.
Celebrate your wins.
Really? That is really...
I celebrate my wins as much as I, mourn my losses, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. So is there anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to mention, Gregor? I know we kind of bounced around, and I think I hit everything that I had on my list, but is there anything that that you wanted to mention that we didn't get to?
It was so much fun to talk to you guys. I have no idea how much time passed. So
we're at about
we're well
an hour
over
and a
the
half.
hour. Yeah, well over the hour that we normally aim for.
No,
it's
all
good.
Oh, Ben,
thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah.
No.
It's
When I say
10X at best.
I think our longest episode to date, at least
was that an hour and a half?
Final edited episode has been like an hour and a half.
I need to stay below that.
Which means that our entire conversation was close to 2 hours. But
yeah. And when I said we're over the hour that we aim for, I mean, we've never hit the hour.
We've
Gregor.
never hit
this isn't. We have never hit the hour yet.
So don't
do
we
you
just
think
have
we
too
will
much
keep
fun.
people on the listening?
I don't know what the stat is. I'm sure most people have dropped off by now.
Do you think people will listen to this episode to the very end?
Wow.
I think people will listen to this episode because your name will pop up in people's feed when I...
you're too kind, Nate. I'm not sure if that's true.
When I put your tag in there, people will see it and they'll listen. Whether or not
We'll
they'll listen to the whole
end.
thing.
Yeah, I'll listen to the end.
Yeah, I'll listen to the end.
So there's 4.
We got 4 listens this month. All right. We're doing great. All right.
400% increase.
Dang.
I'm kidding.
Gregor just buried us.
I'm kidding.
Fake news. Fake news.
400% increase.
Stats.
I pride myself in being a funny
Brutal.
German, which is like a unicorn.
So tell us, let's see, we have a couple of questions. We know the first one. What is the DAW that you primarily use? On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, go. Pro Tools, right, Gregor?
Like in my free time,
Pro
a lot of Ableton Live. A lot of Ableton Live as well.
A lot
Studio
of
One and
Ableton Live and
yeah.
Studio One. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then you're...
Studio One and Ableton Live, of course. Otherwise, I get fired. So.
Yeah, I guess we do have to mention Studio One. But then, DAWless workflow,
Yes.
what was that piece of equipment that you
Push
said?
3 standalone.
Push
easy.
3. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
amazing.
That's
it's
something
amazing.
that we'll link to that in the show notes because I've never heard of that
cannot
before.
recommend it enough because it gives you the limitations that are actually very liberating because you don't have infinite amount of plugins. You have one limiter, so just pick it and keep moving.
Yeah.
So the creative intent is always at the front and center of it. And also the clocking is the most jitter-free and the most stable I've ever seen. Like their audio to CV and clock is just so good, and they don't tell anybody about it, which is to me very autistic. It's like they say, yeah, but this is how it's supposed to be, so you're not like it's like self-explanatory that a clock would be stable, except it isn't. So
Right.
tell people they would buy it.
Well, and it ties in again to what we were just talking about a few minutes ago is turning off your screens, right? If you spend all day, I spend all day looking at a computer screen, and sometimes the last thing I want to do is open up my DAW and create. I have nothing creative left at the end of the workday sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll sit down and play the guitar, but maybe a good workflow for people is to get something like a hardware recorder
100%.
where they don't have to fire up a DAW. They can be creative and capture the idea in, the highest of quality and not have to worry about it. And then they can come back to it later and bring it into their DAW and chop it up and do whatever they want.
Yeah, but also when you work with sequencers like I do and synthesizers, have something with a stable clock because it's so annoying that you record something that you have and then it's just not the same on the timeline. It's off. And then you start zooming in and then you wonder, why is it off? And then it kills your creative vibe so hard, which is why episode 4 on my entire playlist is basically a loopback test to prevent these offsets from occurring because they can be just so distracting. I'm a bit OCD, and when I record something, I want to move on to the next thing, and then I notice it's a bit off. Then I get, I'm like, why is this happening? And so these things are so important to not kill your creative vibe. That you have something in place is just a good signal.
Yeah. Will we see you in January at NAMM?
Of course you will.
Hot dog. All right. Well, we'll
Ben,
see you
Neil,
there.
you guys have to come out as well. I mean, Ben,
I'm trying to get them to come out, but
it's expensive to fly.
you should. We make it worth it.
It's not that expensive.
And NAMM is one of a kind. You have to go. Like
I'm a high school math teacher. It's expensive.
Okay. Fair enough.
One day.
Fair enough.
All
right.
Ben, how about you?
I'm working on it. It's,
maybe 2027.
Yeah,
we'll get him.
We'll see.
I would love to meet you in person one day.
Yeah, it'd be
really
great.
Cool.
Yeah, it'd be
we'll
really
make
good.
it happen. We'll make it happen.
We'll see if we can get that to work.
I'll connect with you at NAMM, Gregor. We'll do another, on the floor interview and catch up and
that
see
was
what's
really
new
special to me. You really caught me at a special moment where I was just overwhelmed.
Pure exhaustion.
But also gratitude. COVID hit me really hard, and that was like the last time I was at NAMM, and I thought that nothing had changed. But in the meantime, I mean, YouTube could change a lot of lives apparently, and there were so many people who came out and thanked me for accompanying in one way or another. And the music journey was overwhelming, really.
We didn't really talk a lot about that, but you did carry a lot. I mean, you and many other content creators carried people through COVID. The sort of
thank you for saying that.
The human connection that people can feel through a computer screen, as much as we talk about how bad screens are for us in a general sense, especially through COVID and lockdowns, having those people that you could tune into daily or weekly on a regular basis. And you were one of them, man. So that's not to be taken lightly. And I completely understand where people were coming from, especially with NAMM being the first real one after all of that.
It was the most rewarding thing I've ever felt, for sure. I mean, you see the comment section sometimes, but think about the amount of videos that you watch and you give a thumbs up at best, even though you really enjoyed the content. I mean, most people just don't use the comment section very much. And I assumed that because I see the same people in the comment section that it's the same group of people, but in the meantime, we had grown, to 450,000 subscribers, and those are real people, and 40% are in the US, and you will meet them at NAMM. It's just the way it goes. And after 2 hours, I lost my voice. Like I met more people before NAMM opened than in the entirety of NAMM in 2019. And I was completely, my voice is so messed up. Like when you listen to this conversation that Nate is referring to, I'm just overwhelmed. I'm so grateful for everything that's happening, but I'm also hoarse as hell. It's just, I never talk this much, and you would think I talk a lot. But
it's all right.
Well, we'll try and get out. We'll try and get out for NAMM.
You should come. It's the once in a lifetime experience.
We'll figure it out. It won't be for 2026, but maybe 2027. We'll get you guys out there, and
Disneyland is right around the corner.
Yeah. And other shameless plug, I guess, because I lead the Ohio Studio One meetups. But if anyone is not aware that there's actually an online meetup for Studio One users, this is hereby your announcement of such meetings. There are a few that happen around the world. I run the one for Ohio. Although it is online, you can be from anywhere. So you don't have to be from Ohio to join, but it is super cool to meet people from Ohio. Gregor pops into one every now and again, I think.
In Europe,
right?
mostly.
In Europe, So, if you're based in Europe, pop into the Europe-based ones, and you'll get a chance to speak with Gregor. And there's others that happen in other parts of the United States and other countries as well. So check those out if you're unaware that those are going on. And I kid you not, I get people, even as recently as last month, I had someone log on who just found out about it. And they've been going on for 5 years now. And someone just found out that there's an online meetup. And they've been using Studio One for years. So it's great.
Yeah, to find them, go to my.presonus.com, and then basically when something is happening, it would be right at the top. So basically it starts with a happening now, and then you see it in the tab above. But if you scroll down a little bit, you should see the events there. And then the Ohio is actually one of our longest standing meetups. Nate, we can't thank you enough for your continued support in that. There's a Zoom link inside, and then you can join that, which is basically just a community hangout to talk about music production, all things Studio One. There's many happening, like 10 or so all over the world for more than 5 years at this point, which is crazy because people thought this is a very, temporary campaign during COVID, but it has turned into so much more. And that's all thanks to, people like you, Nate, who keep it alive. Thank you so much.
It's thanks to the people showing up. If no one shows up, then I don't have anything to do. I'll sign off, right?
True. So, but you keep them there.
I help to keep the room entertained, I guess. What is your favorite desert island plugin one plug. If you had to uninstall all of your plugins and keep just that one, what is
Which
it?
would take Nate a long time.
Which would take me a long time.
Instrument or effect? Or
Just
whichever is the one you
Either
can't live
one.
without.
Can't live without it.
either one.
that's so tough. Hang on. Any moment now. I really like the Spire by Reveal Sound. It's a synthesizer that is just it has certain signature sounds that I use in all my productions, so it's grew very close to my heart. And the other pick would be I can't say Yuhi Presswork, which is my favorite software compressor, but I never forgave Urs Heckmann for changing plugin IDs on the VST2, which broke all of my projects. I never forgot that.
Oh, why would they do that?
But he apologized. He said
Why
he
would
lost
you
sleep
change a
over it,
plugin
which is the
ID?
only developer who ever admitted to that being a wrong thing. Like, there's many companies who do that all the time.
At least he feels bad about it and recognizes what
Some
he did.
plugin developers, they
All
just assign IDs by rolling dice, and they don't care. That's,
Mhm.
Yeah, or like
Arbitrarily,
version 4 has a different ID now than version 3, so all your presets don't load. And I'm like, does anybody here use this? Do you know how frustrating that is?
Yeah.
So, can't be that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other plugin that I really like? This is annoying. I can't think of it. Let me open up my favorites here. Let's see. What do I use all the time? It's just I take them so for granted that I forget. Let's see. Oh, I have a new one. I really love Arturia Cold Fire Distortion. It's a fantastic
Arturia
Cold
Cold
Fire.
Fire Distortion?
Yeah, _ Cold Fire. It's amazing because it adds
check it
harmonics and overtones to like low bass so that you can hear the progression that it plays even on smaller speakers that can go as low, which is really cool. You can't do that with an equalizer usually because that can only boost what's there. And if there's no overtones, then there won't be any, even if you put like plus 100,000, still not there.
Yeah.
Wow, I would love to hear what plus 100,000.
It depends. If there's nothing, it's still nothing. So maybe you get a bit of noise floor if you're lucky. But
a little bit. I think you get a lot.
well, 64-bit noise floor is very low. Not that low, but very low.
Pretty low. All right, Neil, floor is yours.
Yeah, so I have an easier question. So
Is it though?
What? I don't know. Maybe. What was the name of your first band?
It was Reaper.
Was your first band?
Yeah, and that's still one of the only
Reaper.
bands that I play in. Yeah.
All right. Well, you're just like our previous guest, Jeremy, whose one and only band was like a kick-ass band name. We're just like, dang, all right, you win, and that's a great band name, Reaper.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's also the first band that I quit and then the band that I reunited with. And we played our first reunion show last year at Leipzig. It was amazing. I thought everybody forgot about this band because the last gig was literally like 10 years prior to that. And it was sold out. So that was awesome. Yeah. But it's not a big band. It's smaller stuff. Yeah.
Reunited.
Reunited.
Can it feel so good?
It's getting late.
Come on.
Yeah,
Neil's singing.
Where's Joe Gilder when you need him?
Let's pull him into this conversation real quick.
Yeah, he's such a good singer.
He is a good singer. He is.
He is a really good singer. He would like throw reverb on that and just do it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's all the time we have for today. We're getting pretty late now for you guys, at least. Ben and Gregor, you're. I mean, it's only 5 o'clock.
This is very
here.
sad.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh.
Sorry.
That was all of reverb.
That was
a bright hall.
Yeah, it actually was a bright hall.
That was a bright hall.
I thought if we keep singing, we could do like right, but let's not.
Well, so next week we'll be doing a singing competition. You all are invited.
Well, good luck in that, everybody.
Ben is not participating from what I'm hearing.
No.
Ben, you can master all of our takes. How about that?
There we go. There we go.
I shall look forward to it.
Gregor, thank you so much for having.
Thank you so much for hanging out with me.
us.
It was
Thank
so
you
much
for
fun.
being on our podcast and
Thank
spending
you
time
for
with us.
having me. Thank you for your patience with me for listening to my
No, not
stories.
at all. This is great. This
Been
was
great
really, really great conversation.
Glad you say that.
Yeah.
I really had a great time.
Hi, thanks for listening to this episode of Sound Discussion. You can find out more about today's episode by checking the description area here in YouTube or by going to our website, sounddiscussionpodcast.com. While you're there, subscribe to our mailing list so you can be kept up to date on new episodes, updates from the team, and additional content only available to newsletter subscribers. And as always, please leave a comment, like, and subscribe here on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you so much for taking the time today to sit in on our conversation, and we can't wait to have you back next month for another episode of Sound Discussion.
But what about the memes with the skeleton still looking for the right sample? Like, what if we can't post those anymore?